Hello guys, and welcome back to, I think it's the third episode of my Unreal Engine for Beginners sort of introductory series to get to grips with the software, get to grips with blueprinting, and do some really cool things the right way. Okay, I think that's going to be my ethos for teaching Unreal Engine, is doing it the right way, because there's a lot of people that do it the shortcut way, and that's great. You can have fun with that, and you can get things done quickly, but it's not optimal. It's not optimized. It's not how it should be. We want to do things that are clean, they're going to work well, they're expandable, and teaching you the best ways of doing stuff. I don't want to take any shortcuts. We're going to do it right. Okay. So last session we looked into interaction and interfaces and line tracing. That gives us an opportunity to start interacting with our world and our objects. And this session is going to be sort of on the back of that. We're going to create some things that we can interact with. Last session we looked at just what kind of things we could do and how we could interact with objects. This session we're going to look at actually creating a reusable, super expandable blueprint that allows us to create multiple objects. Give it all separate data and information using data tables and structs. Okay, so think about games like Fallout and most Bethesda games really that have tons and tons of objects and foods and consumables and weapons that you can pick up all over the shop and add it into your inventory. They will have physical representations. They also have a bunch of variables and data behind them that make them what they are, and they give them more of their details. So things like your weight and how much they cost, whether it's gold or caps or anything like that. Then you've also got, what do they do for you? What kind of health do they restore? Do they give you any specific abilities? Like a stim pack, does it give you health? Is it consumable? That sort of thing. And so we're going to look at creating some systems that allow us to, build in stuff and create, again, I keep using this word, but expandable, making it so you can keep adding more and more stuff to these systems. So this one might be a little bit longer, but there's a lot of fine tuning and little bits we need to put together for this. Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. So I'm going to come out of my interactables folder, which I was the last session, and we've got all of our folders here. Like per usual, I'm going to add a new folder that's going to contain all of our information. So on my new folder, I'm going to call it item. Let's call it items, right? Items for now. So open that folder up. So there's a few things we need to make in here. Okay, so we need to determine the object that's going to hold all of these sort of variables. It's going to be sent to last. It's the physical representation in the interactable side of what we're using. So as per usual, if it's an object, if it's something that's going to be used in the world that isn't controllable or possessible, if that is even a word, it's going to be an actor. So right click in here, blueprint class, actor. I'm going to call this BP underscore item underscore master. So if you've used Unreal Engine before and you've tried to create a game that's full of a bunch of different things, and you've made 1,000,001 blueprints for different objects, that is unoptimized. It will, your draw calls and how many times you're rendering stuff and loading bits of code and information in is going to draw back your what's the word for it? I've lost the word. Basically, make no game, no run badly, right? We don't want to do that, okay? We want to make things run smooth and like butter. So that's what we're going to do. So in my BP item master, okay, I'm going to open this one up. I'm going to give this one a few things to start it off. So first of all, I'm going to add in a static mesh. And we're going to leave this one blank for now, okay? Just leave it blank. I'm going to call it item mesh for now. Okay, so I've got this here. Okay, compile that. What I'm also going to do is go into my class settings like we did in the last session and add my interactable interface. So my underscore interaction interface into there. So now I can actually press E and the line trace will send information back. And just for some added measure, let's add a box collision. Got a new keyboard. I'm not really used to it, so I keep typing things in wrong. So box collision, there, and let's just scale it down to like 0.7, 0.7, 0.7, like that for now. Okay, just so it's manageable. So compile that. We're going to leave it here for now. Okay, we've got our object ready to start filling it up with information, but we need to go and sort some other bits out first. So save that. Back into my page here. So I've got my item master. I'm going to create a new folder within this and call it item, item data for now. And that's where we're going to store all of our data for our object. So open that one up. In here, we're going to start working with some structs, some enums, and some data tables. So to give you the rundown of what all of those are, because if you are new to Unreal Engine and you're following my series, they're going to be alien words to you. So an enum or an enumerator is essentially just a list of items. On the back end of an enum, they are a list of sort of rows. Think of a spreadsheet. They're a list of rows. Each of these rows / list items has a number behind it from 0 onwards. So, and it allows us to categorize and give things sort of listed value. So to show you what that means, if you right click in here and we go to our blueprint and go to enumeration, okay, I'm going to call this e_item list. Okay, in here I'm going to create the names of my items. Okay, and I'm just going to do 5 for now. So if I open it up, you'll see I've got add enumerator up here, the enum description for the entire file. So I can put in here just for now like item names for data table. Oh, table. There you go. That's how you spell, Joe. Well done. And we've got our enumerators. Obviously, we have no enumerators quite yet because we haven't added them in. So if you click on this add enumerator button, you'll get a row that has 2 different columns, essentially. You've got your name or display name and a description. You don't really need to fill in the description. Your players aren't going to see that, but what they are going to see, or at least is going to work in with our data table, is our display name. So we need to create, I'm going to create like 5 different objects. Okay, and again, I'm on a bit of a Fallout spree at the moment, so I'm going to start naming them after Fallout items. Okay, just to give you an idea of what kind of things we're looking at. So I'm going to call this one Nuka. Is it EA? No, it's just a Nuka-Cola for one. And the way that I'm doing this and the way it's going to work is that we're going to be taking these names, affiliating it with part of our data table, and it's going to allow us to choose from a list what object we want our actor to represent. So for this, and to keep it nice and easy, you want to go with one-worded names. Don't include any spaces, and it makes it easier. You could actually have a list of codes that link to a certain object. That makes it a lot more streamlined, but kind of hard to find what you're looking for. So I like to stick with simple names. So Nuka-Cola, let's go for iguana on a stick. Let's go for Stimpak, pack, like that. Let's go for, what else can we go for? We've got cram. Let's go for 4. Let's keep it at 4. And that's fine with me. Okay. So that is my list of items. Essentially, that's what we're going to start creating. And you're going to see what I mean by how this is expandable the further we go. So save this and close this. I'm going to create one more enum, and this enum is going to be like a categorizing enum, and I'm going to use it to set how common or rare an object is and give it a sort of a scale. All right. So if I right click and create myself a new enum, I'm going to call it e_rarity. Okay. Open that one up, and I'm going to add 3 enumerators to this. Okay. I'm going to do rare. Let's do uncommon and common. So these ones you can have 2 words if you want, because we're not using it as a list in the other way. We're using this as more of a category descriptor. So I'm going to do uncommon like that. Okay, so this is like our 3 stages of rarity. You could equally do it in a different way, and you could have your rarity on a scale of 0 to 1. If you wanted to, you can do it like that. Absolutely, it's not a problem. But I like to categorize with mine with names, because because I can draw on these names in my UX and UI and show these names there, okay? But that's it for my rarity, so save that and close that down. So now I've got my two lists of enums, right? I've got my item list and I've got the rarity list. Now I can start creating a struct, which is the structure. And the structure is essentially just a set of variables. So this is where we determine the categories, essentially, of our objects. And what I mean by that is that we're covering things like its weight, its value, its name, its description, anything about that item that we can describe, you know, even down to, as a Boolean, you know, to tick true or false, is it consumable or not? That sort of thing. So if you right click in here, and we're going to go to our miscellaneous, no, it is in Blueprint. Later on, it's been miscellaneous. In Blueprint, go to our structure. We're going to go for S underscore, let's go for item data struct. And again, you call it what you like. Don't have to stick with my naming conventions, but this is how I like to work. So S underscore item underscore data underscore struct. So if I open this struct up, you're going to see that it's giving us one preset already. So member variable 01, and it's a Boolean. Okay. So we can start setting each of these to describe each variable or data or attribute of our items. So first I'm going to give it a name, and that's going to be a name type for our variable. I'm going to add another one. I'm going to call this one description. So we want to be able to describe what our item is and put that down as a text. I'm going to add a new one and call this one value. And that's going to be an integer because it's going to be like a whole number, right? I'm going to add another one. I'm going to call this one weight. How much does it weigh? Because we're going on to like a weight value, like kilograms and things, I'm going to put this as a float. So there's a point decimal value to this as well. Then I also need to add my rarity list, right? So on here, go on here and add, we'll call it rarity. Ooh, I can't spell. There we go, rarity. And so this one's slightly different. Instead of actually searching for just enum, right? We actually want to search for the specific enum that we've created. So if you search e underscore, and let's do no, it should be rarity. There it is, just down here. And that's going to access that 3-part list that we created of the sort of uncommon, rare, common, that sort of thing. So I'm going to keep that like that. No, I'm not going to add one more thing. So our object needs to have a physical representation in the game world, right? So if it's Nuka-Cola, it needs to be a Nuka-Cola bottle. If it's iguana on a stick, it needs to be a iguana on a stick, right? And we need to see that. So we need to set in here what model it's going to have. You could set in here, you could set the material, you could set the animation it plays, you could set anything like that. Think of using this system for a skin system as well. You know, so if it's like Valorant or Counter-Strike, we could have skins on your items. You could set the sound effects for it, the particles, anything that you can use as a variable. So any piece of data you can set in here. It's a really cool system. So I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to call this item mesh, like that. And for this, I'm going to look in here and find a static mesh variable, and I'm going to make sure that is an object reference. So if I save that, and I can close that down, not a problem. If I'm going to close some of these other things down because they're kind of getting in my way, I don't need that anymore. I'll keep him up and I'll get rid of that one as well. So now I've got my 2 enum lists. I've got my struct, which is going to determine what rules and data my objects carry. And now we need to set out that data. So we're going to be using a data table. Now there's 2 ways of using a data table. You can create one in Unreal Engine and build it through there. But if you have tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of data, you can actually import CSV files into this. So you can import a spreadsheet or a Google Sheets file, because a data table essentially is just a spreadsheet, right? So you can import your data in through here, through your spreadsheets, and have tons of data just chucked into here. So you could create a whole list of items and things and import them all in. And I will probably show that in a more advanced video on this, but for now, I'm going to keep it simple and work in just the engine for now. So we want to right click on here to get our data table. You want to go to miscellaneous, It's always a hard word for me to say, miscellaneous. And we want to look for data table, not composite data table, just a standard data table. So click on that there. Now it's going to ask you to pick row structure. And that is actually going to link directly to our item data struct that we've created on here. So click on that one there, and it's going to give us a bunch of different ones we can look at. If I search for s_item data struct, there it is. And this is then going to determine my my columns for my data table. Okay, so if I click OK, I'm going to call this one dt underscore item info in there. So open that one up, and you're going to see now on the top here you've got your data table. Okay, so it's got your row name, but it's got your name, your description, value, weight, rarity, and item mesh. Right. So I need to add myself in a row, and this row is going to allow us to then set each individual item to have its all of its variables set. So if I click add, I've got a new row, name, description, value. If I look underneath, you can see all of my variable types down here I can set. So I've got my rarity, which is giving me the drop down for all the ones I've created in that list, in that enum. I've got my item mesh, I can search for any models I want. I've got my value, so how much it's worth in integer. I've got my weight in float value, description in text, and my name in a name variable. Okay, so this makes it really easy to just add items and assets and things into the game as you go. So if you've released your game already, or if you're working through the game and you get to a point and you think, okay, I want to add some more items, I want to add some more things in here, it's easy just to chuck them in here and get them working. Okay, so we're going to start adding in our objects. So what I want to do initially is I want to go and grab my item list and open it up. Okay, so I get my names here. I'm going to chuck it just to the side here. Okay, so I get my names and I can see them. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to add 4 rows. Because to access each of these ones in the way that we're going to do it, in terms of a drop down, we need to access them via our row name. Okay, and those row name needs to basically be exactly the same as our item list over here, our enums. So I'm going to copy that, double click my row name and paste it in there. Copy that, paste it in there. Copy that, paste it in there. Bear in mind there is a much more advanced way of doing this than how I'm doing it now. But for a beginner, this is your best way forward. Okay. So now my row names match up with my enum names. We're gonna revisit that later, and I'll show you why we've done that. So I can get rid of my enums now. Okay, I can get rid of that and hide that. Now I'm gonna start filling in my data, which is the fun bit. I'm gonna give all of my objects and my items some attributes. So name number 1, I'm going to call it Nuka-Cola. And this is where you can have fun with your names. You don't have to stick to any naming conventions or not having spaces or anything like that. You can have how you'd like it. So cola drink is my description. I'm not going too crazy with that. It's going to be worth 2 caps. It's going to be 0.4 in weight. It's going to be a common. And then the item mesh. I haven't got any meshes into this project actually, so I need to add some in from Blender or something, just some cubes and things like that. So that's number 1, iguana. I'm going to change this to iguana on a stick. I'm going to call this tasty iguana. Value is going to be, what I put the new color, I'm going to put that 3 caps. Weight is going to be 0.3. This is going to be common as well. And I'll set the mesh to that as well. Then I've got my stim pack, which is going to be named as a stim pack. Healing item. That value is going to be 5, and the weight of this is going to be 0.8. And I'm going to make this uncommon, just to spice up a little bit. And then the last one is cram. So cram meat. Let's do this as a tinned meat. Value is going to be, I don't know, again, 2. Weight's going to be 0.5, and this is going to be very common as well. You can see now you can start slowly going through and naming your things and giving them the variables it needs. And this is where, again, sometimes we're using things like Excel or Sheets to create this externally and bring it in. Will make it a lot easier for you to work with. Okay, so my items now have all of their data, and it's all there and all it needs to be. Okay, so what I'm going to quickly do, off camera is I'm going to go create some simple representable models so I can show you the next steps. Cool. So after a very quick excursion over to Blender, I've knocked up just a couple of items just to physically represent what we're doing. So I've got our little stim pack, I've got our iguana meat, our cram tin, and a cola tin. Just quick things that we can just represent these items in so we can see the process visually, right? So in Unreal Engine, I'm going to create myself a quick new folder and just call it item mesh, basically. In here, I'm going to right click, import to current folder, go on my desktop and just bring my items in, just like that. So got my cans there, all my items that you should be able to see visibly, which is all well and good. So in my DT item info, I'm now going to go and set my item meshes that you can use. So on the drop down there, I've got all of my items now in terms of meshes. So my new cola, I'm going to go for cola. My iguana is going to be my little iguana meat. My stim pack is going to be my quick little stim pack I made. And the cram meat is going to be a little tin can that I've done there. So now everything has data attached to it. It has a model, a visual representation. It's got its value and its weight and its name and its description. And now we need to start actually accessing this to be able to set our singular blueprint to carry all this data. So all of our backend's done, all of our item information is done, so we can get rid of that now. We can close it all down. And we can focus on our BP item master. Okay. So in here, in my event graph, there's a couple things I need to do. So like always, get this and delete all of that. We need to create a couple of variables, essentially. So variable number 1 is going to be our enum list, right? So e underscore items, or not even that, you can just call it item list, like that. In my variable section, I'm going to search for my e underscore item list, which is my enum value. So with enums, you're never looking for just a regular enum variable, you're looking for the specific one that you've made for what you're working with. So e underscore item list, compile that. And then what we want to do, right? So usually we've been working in the event graph, which is your runtime graph. So when you click play, things will run. My ethos and the way I like to build games is it's sort of like you're building a game editor, right? Think of Halo Forge or Gmod and things like that. You're building something you can build a game into. And that makes it so much easier for your environment design, for sort of scalability and the sort of changes in the way that your game works and the way that you design it. And it lets you innovate pretty quickly. So you've got the event graph, like I said, which is your runtime, but actually you want to go to your construction script. Okay, and your construction script is pre-runtime. And what that means is that you can change things and your code will change in editor. So you don't have to click play to test it and change things and move things around. It's going to change in your editor. And what that means is that we can use our item list as a sort of drop-down list to select what we want this item to be. Then all of the attributes and data that we've set will then set in editor. So when we click play, it's all there and it all links up. So I'm going to show you how that works. So the first thing we actually need to do is on our variable, we need to set our item list to be instance editable. Okay. And what that means is that, you know, if we were to change this item list on here, it would mean that every single one, every single object essentially we put in there will change too. But if we instance edit it, what that means is that when we change this default value in here on one of our objects, it will only change for that one specific instance of that object. So it makes it so you can drag as many of these, you know, the same blueprints essentially in, but have them work in different ways. All right. So what we need to do is in the construction script, we need to be able to access our data tables and then from there, set the data. So with our item list, we're going to drag this out here and do a get. All right. What we need to do is right click in here and search for get row names, get data table row names, so get track, no, we don't want that. Get data table row. So get to data table row here on a string table. Click on that one there. Equally, there is a variable you can do. So you can do data table, and you can get a data table row handler. Okay, so data row handle. down here. Okay, and this is sort of the same thing as this. Okay, so you can use either or either. It's entirely up to you. Just to give you an example of this, if we do set in here, now if I break this struct pin, you've got the same sort of things essentially, and so you can do it variable based, or you can do it sort of function and node based. I'm going to stick to the function and node based just for now. So data table, if I go on my drop down here, I've got my DT item info. I'm going to set my data table in here, and I'm going to plug it into my construction script. So at pre-runtime in the editor, it's going to set this information. Now I need to set my row name to link up. You see here it's got the rows now to link up with this item list. But the difference is that this is an enum and this is a name variable. So we need to do some conversions. If I was to just drag this in here and convert it like that, it won't work. What this will do is actually give us our number here. So I mentioned earlier that an enum is a list of words and names, but it's equally also a list of numbers from 0 onwards. So if I was to plug this and convert it straight from an enum into a name, it's going to give us essentially the row name of our enum, which is either 0, 1, 2, 3, that sort of thing. So we don't want that. We want to actually convert our item list and our enum into the enum names, the display names, and then paste them into here. So if I go on here and do enum to string, so to convert it from a enum value, it's going to paste those names into string form, and then we're going to do a conversion from string to name. It's a bit of a long-winded way, but what this does is it takes our enum names and actually pastes them as they should into our row name. And so now our enum item list will be setting what row from our data table to have selected. Once the row is found, we can start getting our details and getting our variables. So similar to the other episode where we looked at line tracing, we've got our out row here, which is basically a break, right? It's a struct. And this is our struct that we created earlier. So I come off of here and do break s item data struct. You're going to get a list of variables. And these are going to look very familiar because you've got your name, your description, your value, your weight, your rarity, your item mesh. And so this is where we start actually setting in our actor the data. So I'm going to do, it's going to look very messy at first, but I want to show you a very good way of cleaning things up. So all we're going to do is we start promoting these to variables to set them in our model. Sorry, in our blueprint. So if I right click name, promote to variable, and chuck them up on row found, like that. Description, promote that to a variable as well. So it's now like a local variable in our blueprint. Value, promote that to variable as well. Plug it in there. Weight, plug that down here as well. Rarity, go over here and add that in on the end. And then finally, item mesh down here. Okay. So now what we've done is we've taken whatever row, before we start loading into the game, whatever we've got in here in terms of the row, setting this data. So if it's the stim pack, it's then going to set it to all these things to link up with the data table in terms of the stim pack, or the Nuka-Cola, or the iguana, that sort of thing. And it's then going to put them into here. So now on my actual blueprint, I've now got these variables that match up, right? So obviously this doesn't look very pretty. This is a very ugly piece of code because there's a lot of spaghetti going on. So what we can do is we can collapse these to a function, and that one gives us clean code and it looks very good. But equally, it actually allows us to use it again and use it in different ways. So if I select all of my variable sets, right click it and do collapse to function, you see now it sort of collapses it down into here and makes it a lot nicer looking, a lot more easy to work with. So I'm going to rename this over here. It'll come up over here as a new function. And we're going to rename this to item, I can't spell, item data input. And so now I've got my information being pasted into here, coming from my struct, and it's actually pasting the information from my data table into the corresponding variables. All right. So if I was to go and load this in now, the data would transfer over, but the one thing that wouldn't change is the mesh. So we've set these variables. We haven't actually changed our static mesh yet. We haven't actually set it to change it to whatever the item mesh is in here, right? Let's just get rid of this so it name's a bit nicer. So in my item data input, if I double click this and open up this function, you're going to see this is exactly what we created earlier. It's just collapsed into this function area now. And I've got my item mesh poking through here. And what I need to do is I need to then, in this function, to keep it nice and clean and keep it tucked away, I'm going to set my item mesh, static mesh, to be whatever it is on the data table. So item mesh, I'm going to drag a reference to that over here to the end. I'm then going to do set static mesh, plug it into the end here, and then because my last variable is my mesh, I can plug that value into my new mesh. And so now every time we choose a different part or different row or different item, it'll change on the fly there and then, and all the data will carry over with it. So to give you an example of that, okay, if I quickly set my item mesh by default, in fact, actually no, even easier, if we set my item list to Nuka-Cola as default, if I go into my game, let's get rid of the old one and drag in our new BP item master, drag it in, you can see by default it's my can, right? And that's all well and good, but if I look down the bottom right here where I've made it instance editable, you can see my item list and my drop down. If I go to iguana, you see it's going to change while we're actually in the editor, and it's going to change there. So I could grab, you know, a duplicate of this and then go, cool, I want it to be iguana, and you can see it doesn't change this one, it changes them individually. And so now I'm going to show you in a second that all the data is also carried over. So let's set it to all these different ones. Let's do cram for that one, and then what one am I missing? It is the stim pack, isn't it? So now I've got all three of my items here, and these are all different items. They're all going to carry different data because we set it on our list here, but actually they're all the same blueprint. So in terms of optimization, in terms of, you know, you don't need to have multiple blueprints to have different items. You can have it all contained within one lovely package. So to incorporate some of the things we did in the last session, we're going to use our line trace in our item master to then tell us what's in these items. You know, what's its value, what's its weight, that sort of thing. So in my item master, back to my event graph, okay, because we earlier added our interact into here, if I open up that, and you can see now I've got, with double clicking my interface, I've got my red event. So in our character, when this fires off, same as pressing the other cube, it's going to fire this off once I press E on our objects. And with this, I'm going to start actually printing the information it's giving us down here, just as a visualization to show us that the data is actually popping up and showing. So if I go and grab get name, let's do get description, let's do get value, get weight, and then get rarity as well, just for now. In fact, we won't do rarity because you've got to convert it. And oh no, we can actually. No, ignore me. I'm being stupid. So event interact. If I do a print string, we'll start with our name. It'll convert it. Let's get a few more of these just lined up, ready to go. How many have we got here? 1, 2, 5. So one more. Obviously, plug the executables in so they actually fire off. Okay, and again, if you're following along, you don't have to do this, but it's just a good way of visualizing it actually working. Okay, so it's going to print all of these things in order. So it's going to tell me its name, its description, its value, its weight, and then its rarity. It's going to give us a conversion there. So if I compile this, go into my game, click play, walk over to my objects. If I click on my stim pack, you can see it says uncommon, 0.8, stim pack, healing item. Here's my can, press E, press E, there in the end. Common, 0.5, 2, tinned meat. You can see it's actually picking up the different information because I've set it with our enum list in the construction script. It's changing it before the game has even started. And it allows you to have tons and tons of these, okay? So last thing you can do with these as well to make them a bit more diverse is you can actually give them physics as well, like a Bethesda game, all right? So I'm going to chuck my collision box to be a bit smaller. It's about there. Just for now, I'm going to chuck my item mesh as a child of my box. And I'm going to give this some physics. Compile that. So if I click play now, walk over, you can see they've actually got box physics. Press E on them like that, and they'll have the same information, and they're all little items in your game. So you could place these all around your shop, and you can have, just to give you an example. Oh, ignore that. That's a physics thing. Don't worry about too much about that. I can have an absolute shed load of these, right? Like this. You got tons of these items, and they all hold the individual data. So if I come out of this as well, ignore that error. On here, my drop down, I can change that whenever I want. So I can be designing a level, say, and I'm putting all of my objects in, and I want to chuck a bunch of Nuka-Colas in there. But actually, I go, oh, wait, actually, I don't want them all to be Nuka-Colas. This one should actually be a stim pack instead. And you could just change things on the fly there and then. And so that's a really dynamic, really, again, I'm going to use the word expandable system for items. So a bit further down the line, we'll go into sort of the inventory area and looking how we can take these and put them into an inventory with all of this data, even show you how we can consume these things and apply this to our character as well. So a bit of a longer one, but it's a really useful system for you to use. So that's about it really for this session. So thank you so much for watching. We'll have some more stuff on the way soon. I'm kind of going a little ad hoc with this series and just kind of choosing what I think is the most important things and interesting things to know when creating stuff in Unreal Engine, doing the simple stuff, going from the ground up really. If you're watching these videos, you're clearly looking to either learn how to use Unreal or how to do these specific things. So if you've got any suggestions of things you want me to do or to cover in this series, please let me know in the comment section below. I sound like your standard YouTuber now. I guess that's what I'm becoming because I'm on this platform. I'm also going to be doing a few sort of fun challenges soon in terms of sort of recreating current game mechanics. So if you've got any ideas and things you want me to cover, please let me know as well. I want to have some fun. I enjoy a challenge. I enjoy trying to make things as close to maybe what they are before and doing it in the exact same ways and doing it in an optimized way. I don't like cutting corners. Things should be right for me, and that's what I'm going to do. So again, thank you for watching, guys. Really appreciate the time you've hopefully given to these tutorials. I hope it's helped the project you're working on. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.